What is up, maniacs? Once again, it's your notorious boy from Pasig City. It's me, JCT.
And I'm FSP Works, but you can always call me Fred.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to be electrified with our bumper to bumper banger!
So we've always featured, JDM cars from our previous episodes, But this time we're gonna feature a car from the Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West. So we're talking about another genre of car, right? So
Sort of, yes.
are we talking about American muscle?
Yes, loads of them.
Yeah, American muscle, man. One of my favorite genres apart from exotics and GDMs.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, what exactly are we going to talk about today? Like, what kind of American muscle car?
Well, you take a guess now, Chris. Well, as usual, I'd always make a guess, Chris.
Oh my god, there's tons of them. Okay, let me guess. Is it going to be a Dodge?
Yes, it's a Dodge,
Woo! Okay, there's lots of names coming in my head. But the first one that come into my head, could it be the famous Fast and the Furious poster boy car, the Dodge Charger?
Absolutely, Chris.
Yeah, damn. So we're talking about Vin Diesel's, unicorn. Vin Diesel's made, the macho family car, as we call it, the Dodge Charger, the breadwinner of Daytona and drag racing, right?
Yes, sir. And for some reason, right now, you kind of look like Dom Toretto, An enemy of my enemy is my friend.
The thing is, I don't have friends. I got family. Well, I have to admit that he's actually one of my main inspirations for, looking the way I am today, but thank you for noticing.
And by the way, you've got some nice shades, man.
Oh yeah, I just realized I actually do wear the family shades today. So anyway, what exactly are we going to tackle with regards to the Dodge Charger today?
Well, let's say the brief history of it, and probably the movie and the culture that surrounds it,
Oh yes, the Dodge Charger is indeed one of the most electrifying and one of the most notable legends of the American muscle scene. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us get to the history of the Dodge Charger.
Let's go through it!
So Fred, speaking of the first generation Charger, it was a pony car, right?
Right, and it's a hybrid between the Ford Thunderbird and the Ford Mustang, It combined the muscles of a Mustang and the luxury and smoothness of a Ford Thunderbird,
Exactly, and speaking of which, it actually looked like the best of both worlds, like at least what
Exactly.
they're trying to accomplish, but to other people, unfortunately, they didn't really get the message. But to me, I could clearly see that it clearly represented the best of both worlds, given that it had the distinct shape of the Mustang,
Right.
a very, very unique shape, but at the same time, it had the length and width of the Thunderbird, right?
Exactly. And it is a bit, not really luxurious, but I must say it is in between, yeah?
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Apart from that, it also had a different engine from the ones that we are accustomed to today, right?
Yes, and it's not yet as, how do I say this, powerful, I must say.
Yeah, it still lacked the horses that we know today. Because, come on, we all know that Dominic Toretto, aka Vin Diesel,
It's Toretto.
Sorry. Anyway, well, yeah, back to what we were saying. We both know that he actually added much more horses into the engine, but originally, as a pony car, it was meant to compete and be equals with the Thunderbird and the Mustang.
Right. He's absolutely right. The first generation Dodge Charger came out in 1964 as a show car. The production car was later introduced in 1966 as a two-door fastback. This was powered by a 5.2-liter V8, or a powerful Hemi V8, with options of 3-speed standard transmission or an automatic transmission. It was categorized as a luxury coupe, together with a Ford Thunderbird and an Oldsmobile Toronado. The Charger shared the same platform and components with the Coronet. This model year did not sell well though. As I have mentioned, it came out from different movies such as The Dukes of Hazzard, and of course, how can we forget this? The Fast and Furious, wherein No other than Dom Toretto is driving this Dodge Charger. So without further ado, let's get into a little bit of the details of the second generation Dodge Charger, shall we? Looking at the second generation, it is indeed a head turner. This handsome second generation was introduced in 1968 with a totally new design. It had more muscles and sex appeal. Sales were exceptionally high for this production year. Different engine options were available, from a 3.7-liter inline-six to a more powerful 7.2-liter V8. Now, a sharper Dodge Charger Daytona was later introduced in 1969. Well, despite of it being one of the most successful generation, it wasn't really a champ in NASCAR.
So Fred, the next charger we're going to talk about is the famous V-body, right?
Right. And it's released in 1970.
Yeah, and speaking of V-bodies, let me tell you something about a great letter V.
Alright. You're not gonna make a joke, Chris.
I'm not kidding, folks. This car was actually made to mascot as Bumblebee.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
It was
I've never known that, seriously. I have never known that.
Yes. In 1971, it was actually made to look quite like Bumblebee as they painted it, they coated it with yellow and black
Right.
stripes. At the
Interesting.
same time, if you notice, it actually has a similar shape to the Camaro and GTO actually, especially with the grille.
Yep, I can tell. It kind of resembles it, right?
It also has a really, really big 440 six-pack V8.
Damn.
So without further ado, let's get into the details of this famous V-body charger.
Okay then.
Introduced in 1971, the third generation Charger was well known by the enthusiasts as the Super B. The most noticeable changes here includes a semi-fastback rear window, a different side profile, and yet another handsome redesign on the grille. It was actually designed to meet safety and emissions regulations during that time. Well, it was on the sunset of the golden age of American muscle cars, before the historical fuel crisis. And that brings us to the next generation Charger.
So this next charger that we're going to talk about is still based on the V-body, but it's more of a coupe, right?
Right. And I've seen how it looks like though. It kind of resembles any generic American car in the 70s, and especially during the fuel crisis era.
Not to mention, it actually reminds me a bit of the Gran Torino mashed up with the El Camino in a way, especially
Yep,
with the boxy body.
Exactly. Kind of, what do you call this? Resembles it. You're right.
Also the Ford Galaxies, right? Because of the, I don't know, I think it's because it has something to do with the gas crisis here.
Yes. Well, the fuel crisis ruined most muscle cars, in the 70s.
I have a similar nuts here. Like, I really, really prefer the earlier, versions and interpretations.
Yep, I have to say, frankly though, I much prefer the pre-fuel crisis era cars.
Same, they really had this muscly, if I may say, shape, and this really, they had very, very distinct designs, but really seemed to have repetitive design for some reason.
Exactly.
In the mid-70s, yeah.
But also in the fuel crisis era, it also kind of gave away to small but powerful Japanese cars. You know what I mean?
Indeed. I believe this was also the birth of the famous Skyline which we discussed earlier.
Yes, you're right.
So without further ado, ladies and gents, let us talk about this V-body coupe.
Still on a B-body platform, the fourth generation was launched in 1975. The Charger is yet back again to being a personal luxury coupe. Despite of it being one of the least desirable generations, it came out with some more desirable variants such as the Magnum and the Daytona. Well, nonetheless, though, the fourth generation was still quite a disappointment, in my opinion at least. What we have here is the fifth generation, introduced in 1982. Well, it is far from being a muscle car. However, it looks like one of those cooler, compact coupes back in the 1980s. It kind of reminds me of the Fox body Ford Mustang. The way it looks, and the way it looks rather compact and lightweight in a way. Well, I must say that this generation of Charger is quite underrated. Well, despite of it being smaller, I guess it probably sort of deserves a little bit more attention. And so I'm just gonna give a few details about this. With the return of the Charger in 1981, it came out with smaller engines. It had 2.2-liter single overhead camshaft engine with an option of a turbocharger. Now, a spicy Charger Shelby came out in 1984 with a power of 146 horsepower. Well, what I can say about the fuel prices though is that it sort of gave away to tiny but powerful engines. So it wasn't really totally a bad thing per se.
So the next and the last Charger that we have here is from 2006 with only a four-door, unfortunately.
And it seems to have a really different body type. Like it seems rounder, and yet, well, the back is still boxy, but it seems to reflect more on the modern-day Mustangs and Camaros, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it looks a lot more like a modern-day Chevy Impala, I must say, and it looks more rounder.
Looks rounder. I mean, it still looks decent for me. Like I give it probably a 7 out of 10. I mean, I'm more of inclined to the past generations, particularly the 60s and 70s. But for me, this one, it looks great. But I still prefer the Mustang and the Camaro.
Well, it still has the muscle though.
Indeed, it has a lot of horses under that hood, and it's also the reason why Vin Diesel has been using it ever since Fast and Furious 5 to the current generation.
And it's also been used a lot in the New York police district.
Indeed, it's always been their quote-unquote, mad dog of the street, since it has a huge body, great for ramming criminals, and the horsepower to back it up, not to mention.
Exactly. That's why it's so popular in the New York police district, and probably in most police department in the United States.
Indeed, a very interesting car. I really can't wait to get into detail as to what this car's all about. So without further ado, let's talk about this modern-day Dodge Charger.
All right.
Now it's been years since the last Charger was rolled out of the production line. In 2006, the 6th generation was born. It is now on Chrysler's LX platform. There are quite a number of variants to choose from as well, from an SE, SXT, RT, to an RT Daytona. It was also used as a police mobile in the US for quite some time. The 7th generation, which came out in 2011, is almost no different from the 6th generation. Same 4 doors, grille, but a different taillight. It was later facelifted again in 2015 with a new grille design. Well, could this be one of the last of its kind? Only time can tell.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, another bumper-to-bumper banger with the legendary poster boy of Daytona and Fast and Furious, the legendary Dodge Charger.
It wouldn't be a Dodge Charger without Dom Toretto from Fast and Furious.
Exactly.
And the New York Police Department.
Not to mention the famous Richard Petty for making it very, very famous in NASCAR.
And General Lee as well, I forgot to mention.
General Lee, yes, one of my favorite muscle car movies of all time. Also Bullet, remember when it chased the, McQueen and his Mustang?
Oh yeah, remember that.
Yeah. And indeed it has been one of the, namesakes for drag, for circuits, for NASCAR, and for almost every type of races actually, due to its performance and, machismo, if you know what I'm saying. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, catch us next week as we go to another session of our Bumper to Bumper Banger! What is up, maniacs? Once again, it's JCT, and I'm here to personally thank you for reaching the end of our video. Now, if you've liked what you've seen so far, please do like, share, and subscribe. And also, don't forget to ring the notification bell for more Bumper to Bumper Banger!